When a very impressionable, trend-hopping young man attended college, he made his way throughout a bunch of different teenage subcultures, even dabbling in dating other men before he got bored and dropped them all. What truly came to captivate him after high school would be an online subculture that was much, much more dangerous. Time and time again on this channel, we've come to see killers who are inspired by other killers. This usually comes about when they agree on some sort of negative ideology towards society. The man in today's story was very much one of those followers, although let's say his attack didn't go quite as planned. Philip Manshaus was born on August 29th in 1997, the youngest of three brothers. He, his mom, his dad, and his brothers lived in Bærum, a somewhat affluent suburb of Oslo in Norway. He started his life with a very normal upbringing, but it didn't last that long at all. When he was only 4 years old, his father decided to divorce his mother. This led to his mother ending her own life. That very same year, Philip's grandmother ended her own life as well. While he was far too young to understand any of it, he definitely noticed that his mother wasn't around anymore. At such a young age, it was hard to handle. A while down the road, Philip's father began to date a woman named Ellen Ilhe Hansen, a single mother in the area. Ellen, a few years prior, had chosen to adopt. She ended up adopting a 9-month-old baby from China, one that she would come to name Johanne Jongjia Ilhe Hansen. After Ellen dated Philip's father for a while, the two came to get married and move in together, making Johanne the youngest sister of Philip and the other boys. When Philip was a teenager, he entered into a liberal arts craft school, one called a folk school. In Norway, these kinds of schools are described as educational institutions that focus on experimental learning and personal development, that involve more hands-on, experience-oriented types of classes. As soon as he entered into high school, Philip began to go through a whole lot of phases. According to his parents, he chose to try out numerous different lifestyles, not sticking to any one of them for too long. At first, Philip decided to become a stoner. He got big into psychedelics like LSD. It was because of this fascination that he ended up getting into a car accident while high when he was only 15 years old. Once he recovered from that, he ended up getting really big into the Oslo emo scene. After that, he decided that he was gay, even getting a boyfriend for a while. When he got bored of that lifestyle as well, he decided that he wanted to try something different once again. Johanna herself entered into high school where she took classes involving communications and media. She had wanted to become a journalist. She had been dating a man from Portugal online and hoped to go live with him once she had graduated with a degree in the subject. All throughout, Johanna and Philip were very close, seeing each other as full siblings, never feeling that they were anything less. It was said that Johanna looked up to Philip quite a bit, even aspiring to be more like him. Everything in their lives would come to change in the summer of 2017 when Philip decided that it was time to adopt a new lifestyle and personality once more. Philip got very invested in a lot of conspiracy theories online, mainly while watching YouTube and reading articles from various different sources. He became very interested in neo-Nazi ideals, finding a deep fascination with the type of propaganda that he was finding online. Philip himself later said that it was because of the internet that he was able to find this interest, adding that he likely wouldn't have come across it otherwise. As Philip continued to immerse himself with this community online, he slowly came to forget that most people didn't agree with these ideas. He started to discuss these new beliefs openly with his friends, such as trying to convince them that the Holocaust had never happened. His rants about Jews came to take up his entire personality and basically everything he talked about, leading to his friends creating a new group chat just to get away from him. One friend of Philip's from high school said that he noticed the quick, abrupt change in his personality shortly after it happened. He noted that while Philip used to experiment with drugs pretty heavily, he suddenly stopped taking them and began to grow much more depressed and pessimistic about life. As the year continued, Philip became more comfortable with preaching these ideas to his family as well. By 2018, he was in full swing, telling his family at the dinner table all about his hatred of Jews, immigration, race mixing, and culture clashes. Philip became more interested in religion as well, but not necessarily because he believed in God. If anything, it appears that he wanted to adopt Christianity because he saw it as white, a part of his heritage. He met up with some Christians who convinced him to leave atheism behind and adopt a Lutheran worldview. In his mind, this was merely a part of Philip's self-perceived racial awakening. On June 18th of 2018, one of Philip's old friends sent a tip about him to the Norwegian authorities. In the tip, they said that Philip had adopted some concerning far-right views and that it had appeared he was a full-fledged neo-Nazi. After the police came to look over the tip, they came to the conclusion that it was all too vague, just hearsay without evidence, and there wasn't any reason to believe that Philip was planning some sort of attack. At the time, that was true. Given that, the tip was thrown out and neither Philip nor his parents were even notified about it. While leaving his other phases in the past, Philip also came to feel a strong sense of shame towards his own gay past. He grew to hate gay people throughout 2019, coming to believe in gay conversion, feeling that gay people could become heterosexual if they put in the effort like he did. He didn't seem to grasp the fact that he likely was never gay in the first place and was only trend hopping. More and more of Philip's friends began to distance themselves from him as he grew more radical and more preachy. Many people within his circle told others that they would no longer attend any sort of gathering if Philip was coming, wanting to cut him off for good. The other friends agreed, leading to Philip being dropped by all of his remaining friends virtually all at once. Philip couldn't stand it and, in the summer of 2019, showed up to one of these gatherings unannounced. Everyone felt extremely awkward as he went on yet another racist rant. Still though, his friends believed that he was just extremely unlikable. They didn't feel that he was capable of hurting anyone. On the contrary, they expressed the worry that he would get himself killed if he kept going on these rants in public. Further isolated, Philip only grew more terminally online and more radical. He took a large interest in school shootings, especially those that had occurred in the United States and Finland, such as that of Pekka Erik Alvinen. He grew to not only believe in racial superiority, but also became very nationalist as well, focusing more on studying Norwegian terrorists like Anders Behring Breivik. Of him, Philip wrote, "Thank the Lord for Breivik. Without him, it might have been far worse. Together we will destroy these people who have defied the will of our Lord with their greed, lying, miscegenation, meaning race mixing, and fornication. These are abominable." As it usually tends to go with a lot of people who share these beliefs, Philip became very active on several different image boards similar to 4chan. While he was very active on the poll board on 4chan, the politically incorrect board, it wasn't quite wild enough for him. Instead, he started visiting websites like 8chan and EndChan as well. Johanna started to worry very deeply about Philip, noticing the quick, dramatic change in his personality and beliefs. It goes without saying that his racial rants also made her very uncomfortable. She grew concerned that maybe he was seeing her as subhuman as well. She decided to take these concerns to their mom, who suggested that they try to take Philip out to meet some people of ethnic minorities to show him that they were just regular people. Johanna didn't think that this would be enough and didn't feel that her mother was taking the situation seriously enough. She decided to voice her frustrations over Discord, telling several of her friends how uncomfortable she was growing in that house. She told them specifically that she didn't feel safe there. Just as Johanna feared, Philip began to grow more cold towards her as he continued to rant about immigration and his hatred of Jews and Muslims. He told her specifically that she shouldn't have kids with her Portuguese boyfriend, saying that that would be race mixing and that was wrong. He started to make fun of her skin tone as well, something that she was very self-conscious about. Eventually, he told her that she wasn't his sister, being that, in his words, she would have to be human to be related to him. It was on March 15th, 2019 that Philip's life would take yet another dramatic turn. This was the day that Brenton Tarrant committed the Christchurch Mosque shooting, an attack on an enormous scale that resulted in the deaths of 51 people. Brenton had live-streamed his attack, which Philip came to view shortly after. While he said that the video itself didn't affect him too much, Brenton's manifesto did. When Philip came across the manifesto on August 2nd, 2019, he felt something change within him. It resonated with him so deeply that he couldn't eat or sleep for several days, feeling that he had just received a call to action that he couldn't ignore. While Philip had never expressed an interest in committing an attack of his own before, he started to feel like it was his destiny. He admired Brenton's attack so much that he wanted to carry out a similar attack of his own, deciding to go down that same path as similarly as possible. Like Brenton, he wanted to write his own manifesto as well, but for some reason he was never able to get into it, only coming up with a short draft. In a handwritten letter on notebook paper that he wrote with a red pen, he ranted about immigration. One of the only passages that has leaked of this short draft is Philip saying that the mud of yellow, black, and brown must be removed, with Philip himself saying that he wrote it with his sister in mind. Outside of the home, Philip was making a real effort to join a neo-Nazi group in the region, the Nordic Resistance Movement. However, due to the organization suffering a split over some disagreements at the time, he never got past the first of his 2 planned interviews to join the group. Instead of going down that route, Philip decided that he would carry out his attack on society himself. He joined a local gun club, hoping to get his hands on some semi-automatic weapons after pretending that he was only a hobbyist, just as Pekka Erik Alvinen did. He ordered some other gear online as well, such as a bulletproof vest. He had this ordered to the home, sending it to his sister on accident. She opened it up and found the vest, which he then took away from her and hid away. Philip placed a large Norwegian flag up in his bedroom, covering a sizable portion of his wall. This was merely a decoy for when he left his room, though. The real show was what was behind the flag. This was where Philip posted up a number of articles related to Brenton's attack, along with articles about similar attacks and a few swastikas. His stepmother came across all of this and began to panic. This, combined with all of the things that he had said towards his sister, had become too much. She made it clear that she was considering reporting him to the police. Philip knew that the attack he was planning would face a major roadblock if she went through with it. He begged and pleaded with her not to submit the report, promising that he would change. For a while, he did, at least on a surface level. He grew very gentle and calm towards his stepmother. She felt that he had become his old self once again, but she didn't realize how wrong she was. By August 8th, Johanna was once again confiding in her friends. She told them that it was difficult at home, saying that she felt her brother completely hated her at this point. She was, frankly, afraid of him. She expressed that she had been left frustrated and hopeless by his constant racist rants, telling her friends that she couldn't believe his room hosted an altar to school shootings and Nazi imagery. She even said that Philip had started calling her a monkey instead of using her real name. She said that all of this was madness, and that he was listening to an anti-China podcast right then as she was typing. The next day on the 9th, Johanna told her boyfriend about what had happened, writing, "My mother talked to my father about Philip. Then the next day he removed the articles from the wall. Then he made small talk with my mother. It didn't seem genuine. She didn't think so either. Philip hardly ever talks to her." Johanna was right. The act wasn't genuine. In his own room, Philip was messing with his Instagram account, one that hosted a picture of Anders Behring Breivik giving a Nazi salute as its top post. Philip had already laid his plans out for an attack and was gearing up for the occasion. He had found the location of a local mosque in the area, one that used the name Al-Nur, much like the main mosque that Brenton Tarrant had targeted. He hoped to kill as many Muslims as possible and intimidate them into leaving Norway. That wasn't his only plan, though. In big letters in his notes, he wrote, "Murder at home." In his mind, a race war was imminent at that point. He had fully convinced himself that, when that war happened, his parents would be branded as race traitors for housing his sister. He said that she represented a group that was hostile towards his people and, in the end, decided that she would need to die. While Johanna was already worried about her safety, she had no idea what Philip was planning behind the scenes. He went to bed, leaving her none the wiser, and began to prepare for the next day. On the morning of August 10th, 2019, Johanna once again expressed her concerns to her friends. They decided to reach out to Johanna's mother herself and tell her what was happening. They said that they would be reporting Philip regardless of whether or not she chose to help. With this being said, she finally agreed to report him to the police. Little did she know, she had come to this decision far too late. Philip lounged around at home, waiting for his stepmother to leave. Once he saw that she had left the house, he went into his father's room and made his way over to the gun cabinet. There, his father kept 3 guns, a Swedish Mauser 1896 .38 rifle, a Beikel IJ-27E double-barreled shotgun, and a .22 long rifle Remington Model 572 Fieldmaster. With these guns in hand, he wasted no time. He had no idea when his parents might come home. He quickly made his way over to Johanna's room. He pulled up his gun and aimed it towards her, giving her no time to react. Then, the gun misfired. She had just enough time to realize what was happening as Philip fixed the gun and shot her twice in the chest. To make absolutely sure that she was gone, he shot her once more in the head. Satisfied with the beginning of his attack, Philip made his way back into his own bedroom. There, he went over to his computer and prepared a post on N-Chan, one that used Brenton Tarrant's own post on another image board as inspiration. As the image, he posted a meme of Brenton Tarrant, Patrick Crucius, a shooter in the USA who targeted Mexicans, and John Ernest, the Poway shooter, as Chads. He titled the post, "Bump the Race War Thread," and signed it using his own full name. Much like how he felt inspired by Brenton, he hoped his act would make others feel the same sense of calling. He wrote, "Well, cobbers, it's my time. I was elected by St. Tarrant, after all. We can't let this go on. You've got to bump the race war thread in real life, and if you're reading this, then you have been elected by me." Toward the bottom of the post, he posted a link to a live stream, adding, "Stupid shit won't work." Under that, he posted a link to an Imager post that showed a good number of photos of himself. Being as deep into the internet as he was, he labeled this group of files as "Lemi" and referred to them as his OC, or original character. Finishing off, he ended the post with, "It's been fun. Valhall Winter." As soon as he posted, he made his way out to his car with his gear in hand. He turned the keys, hit the pedal, and set off towards the Al-Noor Islamic Center. With him in the car was a large amount of ammunition, his bulletproof vest, and a helmet with a GoPro camera attached. In addition, he also brought his phone and computer, hoping to stream the whole attack on Facebook much like Brenton Tarrant had done. Philip, though, hadn't really done a whole lot in the way of preparation for the attack. He parked at the mosque and attempted to start the live stream. He began recording, but failed to notice that his phone hadn't connected to the internet, meaning that nothing was live streaming. In addition, he didn't notice that he was fairly late to the mosque, with prayer time having been long over. There was hardly even anyone left in the building. At the time, there were only a few old men sitting around and having a conversation. Philip made his way up to the front door of the mosque, finding it locked. Undeterred, he began to fire through the door, shattering much of the glass. He then opened fire inside the building, but he didn't hit anyone. One of the men in the mosque, a senior citizen named Mohammed Rafiq, lunged towards Philip and pinned him to the ground. When he hit the floor, it caused him to drop his weapons. Rafiq then attempted to push the weapons away from him. The old man put Philip into a chokehold. Philip began to struggle and made an attempt to gouge out his eye, but wasn't successful. Philip didn't know that Rafiq was a retired Air Force officer from Pakistan who had only come to the country to be with his son who was working there. One of the other men then approached Philip to take his guns away, causing him to fire the shotgun twice. Again though, he didn't hit anyone. The third old man left in the building, picked up Philip's rifle and hit him in the face with it in an attempt to calm him down. Philip managed to wiggle out of their grip 3 times, but eventually they were able to hold him down until he stopped struggling. Both the police and one more old man were called out to the location. Unfortunately, due to the men's very poor grasp of the Norwegian language, they couldn't clearly convey to the police what was happening. The police, misunderstanding the situation, listed the incident as being low priority and took their time getting there. Before the cops arrived, the extra old man arrived and used a shawl to tie Philip's legs and arms so that he would stop getting away. The police made their way out to the scene and arrested a very bloody, beaten-up Philip on the spot. Hearing from Philip himself what had happened, the police made their way back out to his own home. There, both a bomb squad and an emergency team entered into the house. While they didn't find anything dangerous, they did come across Johanne's body in her bedroom. Now, Philip's very brief master plan was all over. Philip was taken down to the police station and indicted on charges of terrorism and murder. The police, feeling that he clearly wasn't in a sound state of mind, planned on giving him a mental health assessment. They also found that, as much as he wanted to be, Philip wasn't the member of any sort of group and had acted on his own. He was put into a pre-trial jail for a month with no visitation or media access leading up to his first hearing. At that hearing, Philip declared that he wasn't guilty and demanded for his own release. Much like Brenton Tarrant, he claimed that he was acting in self-defense, saying that he was defending the Nordic race from mass immigration. The media originally didn't really know how to describe the attack. They often downplayed Johanne's murder, instead opting to focus more on the failed terror act sort of aspect. As a result, many came to feel that they were simply using this case to send a message to other prospective shooters, telling them that they too would likely fail and end up like this guy. In reality, nobody was really sure why Philip had killed his sister in the first place, giving them fairly little to report on. After all, while she wasn't Nordic, she was far from being a Muslim. Some suspected that she had tried to stop him in his plans, which was the prevailing theory for a while. However, after a bit of time, Philip admitted himself that he had killed her because of her race. As a result, the Norwegian media paid close attention to adopted minorities for a while, calling them the invisible minority. While the Al-Noor Islamic Center had already buffed up their security ever since the Christchurch mosque shooting, they decided to improve their security even more after this attempted attack. In-Chan did what they could to go into cleanup mode, deleting Philip's post pretty swiftly after it came to be clear that he had indeed committed the attack and wasn't joking. Being a fairly unknown image board in the grand scheme of things, they didn't get the same sort of heat that something bigger like 4chan or 8chan would have gotten. While they did eventually lose their old domain name, nchan.gg, the website is still up on a different domain to this day. While Philip was being lambasted in the media for being a fool, Rafiq and the other old men at the mosque were being hailed as heroes. Rather than make the Nordic race look strong and intimidating, Philip's act only resulted in the opposite, respect for the Muslim men he attacked instead. A fundraiser was even started for the men so that 2 of them could go on a religious pilgrimage to Saudi Arabia. When they surpassed their goal by a massive amount, the third man was also able to go along with them. Philip was formally charged with both murder and terrorism on February 17, 2020. It was a good several months before he finally appeared in court himself in May. When he did, he continued to deny the charges against him. He showed no remorse at all, saying that he regretted that his attack wasn't a success due to his own lack of planning. He fully admitted that he killed his sister because she wasn't of Nordic blood. He accepted that he was likely going to get a very long sentence. Because of that, he accused the judges of being complicit in the genocide of Europeans. The prosecutors weren't very happy with his attitude, saying that he had outright executed his own sister in cold blood. During the trial, the audio of Philip's attack on the mosque was played without the video being shown. Although it hadn't been streamed, it still had been recorded to the camera. The audio mainly consisted of Philip being beaten up by a group of senior citizens.
Så reiser vi en hird på nya vid kun Quislingsmenn. Og her I gamle Oslo by står vikingkorpset frem. Faen meg ingen der, jo. Ja, men! Dere skal faen alle ta over Norge! Okay.
It's fairly well known that both prison terms and the prisons themselves in Norway are very lenient in comparison to the rest of the world. This was proven by the fact that Philip was looking at a maximum of 21 years in prison. However, he was given a bit extra. His sentence would be what they call preventative detention, meaning that he would continue to be imprisoned if he was still deemed to be a threat. Philip's defense argued that he was criminally insane and should be getting mental care instead. This only made Philip angry as he didn't want his possible followers to think that he wasn't sound of mind when he committed the attack. Still, his lawyers pushed the angle without his blessing. The prosecution vehemently disagreed with this motion, saying that he should be in prison. Even a few psychologists disagreed with the defense, but surprisingly Philip's own mother agreed, hoping he would receive mental care instead of jail time. On June 11th, 2020, Philip was found guilty on both of the charges against him. He was indeed sentenced to that 21 years of preventative detention. He was also ordered to pay the legal fees of the victims' families, which roughly amounted to about $9,000. Philip himself said that he wasn't planning on appealing the case, but not because he felt that the ruling was just. Instead, it was because he said that he didn't recognize the Norwegian legal system as a legitimate institution. Philip was then thrown into prison to rot away for the foreseeable future. Eventually, a documentary series was made about Philip, a 3-episode show that documented his descent into radicalization online. Philip was actually interviewed in prison about the series, where he said, "There are a lot of different ways to get the views I have, which are quite different from the normal. Some people, for example, read books, for example Mein Kampf, or another fascist literary work, and in a period of maybe 5 to 15 years come to a conclusion that things may not be as they were brought up to believe. Going through the process I did goes significantly faster. I only spent a year, maybe 1.5 years, to get my view on society, and it really represents the impact the internet has. The internet is like a superhighway for ideas, in which ideas and opinions can be shared so fast as we have never seen before. I can safely say that the main actor in my political upheaval was the internet." Philip had gradually been falling apart in prison. He began to get physically aggressive with other inmates, shoving them and trying to start fights. He began to yell that God was speaking to him through the other inmates there. He said that he was the reincarnation of Anders Behring Breivik, despite the fact that the man was still alive. He then said that he had actually authored the Bible himself and that he was the Antichrist. Anders, the Norwegian attacker that Philip had admired, got a parole hearing of his own in 2022. It was during this hearing that Anders' own lawyer suggested that he and Philip become cellmates in prison, saying that the two of them were much less likely to attack each other over other possible cellmates. It doesn't appear that this suggestion was ever granted. Much like his mother and grandmother, one of Philip's older brothers came to end his own life in 2023. It isn't clear as to why he chose to do so, although it's safe to say that Philip's attack likely played a role in his depression. Upon hearing about this, Philip suffered a complete mental breakdown. While he hadn't have been in the best of mental states before, he was now almost unintelligible. Suffering severe psychosis, he was sent off to a psychiatric ward. This turned out to be a blessing in disguise for Philip, as it showed that he clearly was capable of severe bouts of psychosis under the right stimuli. His lawyer submitted a petition to the court asking for his criminal case to be reopened. She said that there was now a sufficient amount of doubt that he was sane at the time of the killing. The victims disagreed, saying that political extremism shouldn't be seen as a sign of mental illness. Still though, it was deemed that there was now enough evidence to argue that Philip was insane, and the case was reopened in March of 2024. His lawyer said that, if this evidence would have been available at the first trial, he would have very likely been placed into a mental health facility instead of jail. She added that he had since lost interest in his previous beliefs, once again dropping his lifestyle and personality, hoping to find the next big thing. With everything out in front of them, the court more or less agreed. They noticed that something had fairly evidently completely snapped within him back in 2017, noting the concern from both his friends and his family at how quickly he had changed. This attack was merely one of many to have been inspired by Brenton Tarrant's attack in Christchurch. While you may think that Philip's case would simply be forgotten about amongst all of them due to having been a failure, that's actually not the case. At least one killer has mentioned Philip as being somewhat of an inspiration since then, that being Peyton Gendron. Peyton, the perpetrator in the 2022 Buffalo shooting, wrote Philip's name on one of his guns before he carried out his own attack. As of the making of this video, Philip Manshaus's case is still technically ongoing since being reopened. He may remain in prison with his current sentence, or he may be resentenced to spend a good amount of time in a mental facility. In the end, only time will really tell where he might go. Once again, thank you for watching my video. If you found it interesting, please give it a like, it really helps me out in the algorithm, and feel free to subscribe if you want to see more content like this. These days, I've opened up a merch store. There you can get yourself some cool Dire Trip t-shirts, coffee mugs, all this other sort of stuff too. If you want, go ahead and follow me on social media. If anything were to ever happen to the channel, or if you just need to get a hold of me, that's the best way to do it. I also really appreciate when people subscribe to my Patreon. There you can get videos early, ad-free, and uncensored. Channel memberships are up too, and you can get the same benefits there as well. Once again, this has been your host Kyle. Thank you, and good night.